The photography that I've been doing for 30 plus years has been all advertising and commercial. I do a lot of offbeat techniques. I have been 100% digital since the year 2000. What brought me to digital was, first of all, the instant response. You can't beat that with a stick. In the studio, I had a full-line lab, which meant we processed E6 daily, and that was from 8x10 sheet film down to 35mm rolls. The original concept was for an editorial shot, and it kind of got more involved than it originally was supposed to, and I ended up having this thing in my stock file, and it's been going very well. It's been in numerous publications, and it just still keeps selling. It's a great shot. The very first thing is selecting a base for it, which I went and picked up a piece of dark marble. After the background was put in, I started putting in the lighting and finessing that. The main lighting is a large soft box just to the right, and it's fairly close to the subject. This gave me a very nice broad highlight on the right-hand side of the bottle as well as the champagne glass. And you can see it stretch right all the way down through the stem. To counter that, on the left-hand side, I added a white reflector card that was slightly taller than the bottle. And again, this was just outside the frame, so it's very close to the subject. And that gave it just the right hint of fill on the left side, and it didn't fight against the main light on the right. One of the common mistakes done in a shot like this is the light is too even. And here is where, again, a handheld meter comes in very handy, is by taking spot readings from the highlights on both sides, you can balance the distance of that fill card versus the distance of the main light from the subject to get the proper balance. The next step was getting the background lit properly. And again, I didn't want a background. I wanted a background that was very subtle. I didn't want it to fight against the subject. So using a gobo, which is basically a black card, I placed a light in back of the gobo aimed at the background, and by moving the gobo closer to the light or further from the light, I was able to make the edge transition, where the shadow and the light balance off. Instead of harsh, it's a very soft transition, which is what I was looking for. And by placing the card closer to the strobe head, I was able to make it a very soft transition. The background is red, and to make it even more intense, I added an amber gel, which is very warming, to the front of the flash unit that was lighting the background. And basically, once I arrived at the proper exposure, that was it. I was done. Well, I currently use the Sekonic L558R, and I use it because it gives me a very quick evaluation of my lighting setup. The meter is what I see my light with. Besides my eyes, it gives me a confirmation. It's easy to look at a shot and say, well, this looks great, but that's not necessarily how film or your digital sensor will see it. So what the meter does, all of my cameras, films in the past and digital cameras today, are calibrated, and I know my exact dynamic range. I know when I take a light reading of any point in that subject frame, I know exactly how it's going to reproduce. And the only thing that can tell me that is the light meter.